I'm Bob Bakert with Jazz Guitar Today, and we're here with Dave Young and Kelly Peterson. And Dave Young is I don't even know where to go with you, man. The maestro, the virtuoso, the amazing bass player that, I mean, you played with Oscar Peterson, obviously, for all those years. And we're going to talk about that in a minute. You played with Joe Pass, which was how we came to know about you. But you also play with Lenny Breau. So between those three guys, I mean, you got nowhere to go, brother. I'm sorry. There's probably an argument between, who was the greatest, jazz guitarist of all time. Some people would say Joe Pass, some people Wes Montgomery, but Lenny has a place all of his own somewhere on some mountaintop.
He does.
And it's the same thing with Oscar. It's like there's, who's the greatest. I mean, there's no question about who is considered to be the greatest, jazz pianist that ever lived. Mm-hmm. And you played with all of them. I mean, that's freaking amazing. So that's how I approached this. And then I started listening to you play and watching you play. And I noticed a few things. Your solo, the tribute to Oscar, where you're sitting there on the stage with the piano is by itself. Your tribute is just, it's ridiculously sensitive. I mean, obviously, great chops and intonation and all the stuff that you would expect, but sensitivity and connection to the purpose of your music. It was just, I mean, it just doesn't get any better than that. It was just absolutely stunning.
Thank you, Bob.
You're welcome. So first of all, we'll talk about Oscar for a few minutes here, and we're going to come back to him because I want to talk about the 1987 concert. But how did you get, lined up with Oscar in the first place?
I first played with Oscar Peterson at the Banff Summer School of, I guess it was a jazz week that they had started. And it was put together actually by Phil Nimmons, who was a good friend of Oscar's. So I went out there as part of the Phil Nimmons group and ended up playing with OP for a couple of occasions and finally played a concert at the end of the week.
So that was 74?
Yeah.
Now, when were you at Berkeley?
Oh, I was at Berkeley in 1962.
I was going to say.
62, 61, 62, I think. Yeah, 62, 63, somewhere in there, yeah.
Have you been back to visit there at any time in the last 10, 15 years?
Not in the last 10 or 15, but I have been back there and went on Boylston Street 905 where I used to live.
Yeah.
And said to myself, wow, I'm glad I'm not here anymore.
I hear. So let's talk about what it was like to be with Oscar all those years.
Well, it started as a duo. That's the interesting part. When I got the call, I thought I was going to join the Oscar Peterson group. And when they finally said, yeah, it'll be you and Oscar. And I said, what? Because I was actually giving up a big orchestra gig that I just got. I just sort of auditioned and finally had this orchestra gig. And they said, no, it'll just be you and Oscar traveling around the world. So that was a bit of a wake up for me that I had to really learn the material pretty well because there was no music involved. I mean, there was no lead sheets, nothing. You just had to go out and play. And nowhere to hide.
And no drummer.
No drummer. Nobody else.
Yeah, you were the time. You were the guy. And of course, Oscar's time was crazy good. I mean, ridiculous.
Yeah.
But oh my God. Well, that must have felt like, holy, what did I get myself into here?
Yeah, it was kind of like that. So when I eventually played with the trio and the quartet, that was much easier.
Oh, yeah. Do you remember your first show with Oscar?
Yeah. Well, the first tour.
Yeah, that's what I'm kind of remembering.
Was a month in Japan. So those are my first shows. I don't even remember what the city was.
But do you remember the feeling of being there on that stage and with all those people?
That's right, walking out. having 3,000 or whatever the number of people there's looking at you and going, okay, play something.
I've talked with people that play with Miles, Miles Davis and other, luminaries, if you will. And I think you've sort of touched on this, that, there were no charts, there were no anything. You sort of like, 1, 2, 3, play. Was that kind of the experience?
Well, I mean, we rehearsed, so
Mm-hmm.
there are arrangements to follow, obviously. And he always, he played the arrangements, and he always played them note perfect. So any deviation from the arrangement was a serious miscalculation. So yeah, we followed the arrangement, but it wasn't like we're just making this stuff up. Yeah, but when we got to the solo section, that's when he said, "Okay, you do whatever you want, and make it good."
Well, I don't think you had any problem with that. So you also, obviously, the guitarists out there are going to be really interested in, your experience with Joe Pass.
Mm-hmm.
When did you meet Joe?
I met Joe the first day that we were booked to do this. I think it was a gig at the Blue Note, if I'm not mistaken. And they rented a rehearsal space for us before the night of the gig or whatever. And that's when I met Joe. And I met Martin at the same time. So we just sat down for a few hours and played over the tunes. And I definitely got the feeling that Joe was not exactly on top of all the arrangements, but he always skated through it so beautifully. I mean, it was just, if he forgot something, he just made it up.
It's funny. We have this big discussion often about, how do you play with the piano? How does a piano and guitar player, how they play together? Yeah. And Ulf Wakenius is on our cover right now, and we were talking about how he played with Oscar. Yeah. And so that's always a big discussion. How I can't even imagine the task that Joe had in front of him trying to find places to keep up with that. It had to be insane. Did you guys ever talk about that?
Not exactly, no. But he would always say, "Gee, yesterday I could play really well." He said, "But as soon as I get here, somehow I've lost my concentration." Joe would just go, "Oh." I mean, he's in the presence of a master at the piano. So
absolutely,
just all of us were in the same boat. So you just had to deal with it.
Well, what's really interesting. I mean, Martin the same way. I mean, all of you guys. When I was listening to Helsinki, this is when it really sunk into me. All of you guys were during that show in particular, and I noticed. I mean, it seemed to me like you guys were at the top of your games. Oscar was playing amazing. Yeah, sure. You were playing amazing. Joe was playing amazing. Martin was. I mean, and you were playing together amazing. I just can't imagine there's a better jazz record out there than that record. So that was the last show of the tour, and you had been out you were in South America, and then you were in Europe. And my understanding is that was the very last show of the tour. You didn't have to get up in the morning and go anywhere. It was kind of like Katie bar the door. Here we go. Was that sort of the feeling on stage that night?
Yeah, I'm sure that we were all kind of relieved that it was the end of the tour, and we could just have fun. Yeah. Whatever. But Oscar always made sure that you were paying attention. I mean, have fun, but you got to have fun and make it really good. So he achieved that night. He took everything quite fast.
There are some people out there that when they're on the stage, you can't stop watching them. How did that feel when you were playing? I mean, did you get the sense of that?
Well, I always had the sense that I was, in his shadow, so to speak. But I also had the sense that if I didn't come up with what I was supposed to do, then it wouldn't work as well. So, I mean, I had to uphold my part of the bargain. Yeah, well, I think you did more than uphold it. I mean, I think you're right there. Yeah. because you can stand toe to toe and hold your own on your respective instrument. And I think you have to realize that Oscar he was a fantastic soloist, but he really wanted the group to sound like a group. He wanted it to sound organized and with all the subtleties that a group should have, as opposed to 4 solo guys up there.
Oh yeah. Well, the dynamics, the group dynamics and the ensemble playing on that's what I was trying to allude to earlier. The group dynamics and the ensemble playing is just second to none. I mean, it's just crazy good. I mean, you can tell that you're a group that's been playing together, 4 virtuoso musicians that have been playing together and working this material to the nth degree. And even in the solos, I mean, the solos are so inspired, but also buttoned up. Man, I mean, the things that you guys are just ripping through, it doesn't feel like you're playing something by rote, but it just feels like you just are in command, and that's tremendous.
Been playing it a lot,
Yeah.
We play that material a lot, and so each time you play it, you want to make it a little bit better.
Mm-hmm. Did you have favorite pieces that you would play?
Well, maybe I had unfavored pieces. I mean, I love the blues.
Yeah.
Anytime we got to play blues, I said, "Oh, this is good. I like this," because it was more relaxed.
Oh yeah.
But if you're going to play in 5 or 6 flats or something, then you go, "Oh, I got to be really careful now." 5 flats or 6 flats, or whatever it is. It just depends on what you're playing as to how loose it can be.
So playing with Joe, I mean, his personality, the reports that I hear, people that knew him, I got a chance to listen to him play, not from your vantage point, but several times, because I used to go to the NAMM shows and the big music show out in the West Coast, and Joe was always in the Polytone booth with a bunch of other luminaries, playing. And so I got to, I met him one time, to shake his hand, but that was it, fanboy kind of stuff, not, Can you describe that experience? I mean, was he one of the guys? Did you guys hang?
Yeah, we hung out a lot together.
Mm-hmm.
He and I and Martin on a few occasions.
Mm-hmm.
Although Martin was less likely to go out walking, but yeah, Martin would rather have sit in a restaurant or something. But Joe and I did a lot of walking. We actually got together and played on our off days. Just I'd go to his room and we'd swap stories, but we'd do a lot of playing. And in the course of playing, you do a lot of talking as well. So
what tunes would you guys call when you're on your own? This is great. I'm loving to hear this. So you're on your own. You're already gigging, like a full-time gig at the highest level, and yet on your day off, if you will, your time off, you're playing together. So what tunes would you call in the hotel rooms and all that? What would you play? What were your favorite tunes to play together?
Well, I mean, we just play standards. I mean, whether it's Autumn Leaves or Cherokee or something, we would just play standards, whatever Joe really felt like playing. We wouldn't necessarily play Oscar's repertoire, although sometimes we should. Try and teach me a few of his tunes. I mean, we did a couple of gigs together, oddly enough.
Yeah.
Here and there. So I like to know some of the things that he played, and he did a lot of playing with Niels Peterson, so I had to learn a couple of those tunes as well.
So let me ask you a question. Have you ever played electric bass?
Oh, years.
Do you still play it?
I still play it, yeah.
Because I haven't seen any video of you play. I mean, I apologize. So you play electric bass as well?
Oh yeah.
How do you determine whether or not you're going to play the electric bass? Because we have Jazz Guitar Today has a sister magazine called Bass Musician Magazine, which is it's been around many more years than us. We've been around 4. How do you determine when you bring the electric bass and when you bring the the upright?
Well, in my career now, I don't take the electric bass unless it's specifically part of the music. So now I play the electric bass only in this group that I've got with a vocalist here in town, and we do all the Donny Hathaway.
Oh wow!
Yeah, so it's all Donny Hathaway or gospel music. So it's all electric bass. Other than that, I'm a string bass player.
Well, okay. I don't feel like I missed anything because I watched a lot. I've seen a lot of your music in the last few days, and so I thought, really. We'll talk about you for just a few minutes here, if you don't mind. This is your interview. So what are you doing now? Our magazine is, basically Jazz Guitar Today. I mean, and so we like to focus on what people are doing today and what they're into and what's going on with their world and where has your career led you to? What are you doing now? Are you having a lot of fun? What's going on with you?
Well, right now, I don't think many of us are having much fun because here in Toronto, there's basically nowhere to play, and it's been in this lockdown situation off and on for the last 2 years, actually. So, but I'm playing enough that I've recorded 2 or 3 CDs in the last 2 years, and up until probably October, we were doing gigs at various places. But right now, we're kind of just at liberty. But I can see it opening up again. So I have groups that I've written music for, and that's what I look forward to.
Excellent. I mean, I know you got a quintet, I think, and a quartet, and
I have an octet which I co-lead with a fellow named Terry Promain, which is really an exciting group. And I have a lot of duo playing that I do with guitar players around Toronto, and largely a fellow named Red Schwager.
Okay.
Used to be with George Shearing.
Oh, great! Yeah.
Yeah, Reg is a fine player.
That's good to know. So I saw a video of you. I'm skipping around a little bit. I saw a video of you playing with the robotic Bosendorfer, if you will. It was you and Roby. He was playing drums on that because I know he's an unbelievable pianist. Yeah. But he was playing drums on that, and then you're playing. For people that haven't seen it, go to YouTube and look for I don't have the title of it, but look for the black and white with the Bosendorfer piano. And it's basically a synclavier type thing it's a player piano, if you will, modern player piano, if you will. And you guys are playing to Oscar's transcribed, if you will, to the synclavier, playing, live drummer, live bass, and Oscar's playing virtually. And it is spooky in a good way. It was like, you can feel him there. And when I'm listening to you play with the virtual Oscar, it feels like he's like right there. How did that feel to you guys?
I think that was something we did at Yamaha. Isn't that right, Kelly?
Yes, that you did that at Yamaha for essentially honoring Oscar 10 years after he passed. So that was filmed at Yamaha.
Right. And
Celine, with the Bosendorfer signature edition piano. Yeah, and Celine was there. Right. Celine really put it all together.
Right. Well, I mean, it was kind of a strange setting, especially when Robbie was playing the drums. To tell you the truth, I can't even remember that part because he played the piano. Most of the things that we did there, but he's a good drummer. I mean, there's no question about it. His father was a drummer, so he learned the drums way back when he was just a little kid. But he can certainly play the piano.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. Yeah. Since we brought you in, for people that don't know, Kelly is Oscar's wife, or was Oscar's wife. I'm not sure what the proper way to say that. And also your role of Oscar's legacy is that. Can you tell us a little bit about what you're doing?
Yes, happy to. I'm a trustee of Oscar's estate, and I also run the company. Oscar had a business called Regal Recordings Limited, and I run that business as well as manage his estate. And really my role is essentially to preserve and promote his legacy. Whatever I can to release new recordings, like It's not a new recording because it was 1987, but it's one that had not been released before from the concert in Helsinki, and create other projects that will keep Oscar's music going. I mean, I have said for years and years that Oscar's music is going to outlive all of us, and his recorded performances will, but I want people to know more about Oscar as a composer and all the work he did writing music. I also want people to be able to hear as much of the archival recordings as possible.
So let's talk about the recording in 1987. Dave, let's go back to you for just a minute. What do you remember from that show?
Well, we did allude to the fact that it was the last concert in a long run of, concerts all over the place. But I recall that it was everybody was pretty relaxed and happy that we were coming to the close of that tour. It's always, tours can be fun, but when you're getting on planes every day and playing at night and then getting up at the crack of dawn the next day and doing the same thing over and over and over again, as you know, as a guitar player, and I'm sure you've been through this routine, it just gets, you're not 100% all the time. So we were very happy to be on that stage and playing our last concert.
And the audience, did the audience have the sense that this was the last show and something special about this tour? Did they? I
don't know that they did, but they really responded to everything we did.
It's an amazing performance. Did it feel that way when you were performing it? Did it feel like, wow, we're on tonight?
No, I think it just felt like, yeah, we're playing this concert. We're playing this music again, and let's do it as good as we can.
So tomorrow, which will be the 21st of January, the worldwide release of the double vinyl. Is that what it is?
It's a triple
vinyl. Oh my God. Of the 1987 Helsinki concert. And I've got to tell you, I haven't listened to all of it, but I listened to quite a bit of it. And I've never heard anything better. I've never heard a quartet of any kind sound better than that. I mean, if you're a fan, and I'm talking to you out there in TV land, if you're a fan of Oscars, if you're a fan of Dave, if you're a fan of Martin, if you're a fan of Joe, and you're a fan of ensemble jazz as well as great solos, I mean, you really got to add this record to your collection. There's just nothing that I've ever heard that I consider better. It's stellar, and that word doesn't really cover it. So I'm really, really excited for people to get a chance to hear it. I know the record has been out for a while, and it's been out since November or December?
The very end of November.
Very end of November it came out. So it's available on Apple Music and Spotify and all of the usual places, if you will. But it's an amazing record, and tremendous. Dave, I want to thank you very much for coming on and talking to us about Joe and talking to us about Oscar. Your mastery of the bass is second to none as far as I'm concerned. Just great sensitivity, and I love it. So thank you very, very much for coming on and talking to me. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you, Bob. It was a pleasure.
So Kelly, thank you for this, and I'm so happy that you were available today and helped put all this together. So I'm going to say goodbye. Is there anything you'd like to add to this before we're done? Is there something I missed?
We could talk about crazy stories about Joe, but I don't.
Well, give me one. Give me one good crazy story about Joe.
Okay, so here we were at the Fairmont Hotel, playing for a week, I believe it was, and usually Joe is featured at some point playing a solo. So I think Oscar went out in the second half and said, now we're going to feature our wonderful guitarist, Mr. Joe Pass. He's going to play some fantastic new arrangement of such and such a song, and blah, blah, blah. And he said, here's Joe Pass. And Joe walks out from the shadows, bows, and realizes he doesn't have his guitar. So now Joe has gone back in the darkness where he left the guitar on a table somewhere, way in the back of his room, and there's shuffling and fooling around, and people saying, "What? Where?" And he comes back a few minutes later with the guitar, and Oscar going, "Joe Pass, the wonderful guitarist, but unfortunately doesn't seem to know where he left it sometimes."
Hi, this is Bob Bakert for Jazz Guitar Today. I want to thank you so much, Dave and Kelly, for being here today and doing this with us. I don't even know how to thank you, to be honest with you. It's incredible. Have a wonderful day, and thank you. Bye now.
Bye.